Hello everyone, this is StrawberryShorty here with my review of Little Hope for the PS4. So, Little Hope is the second game in the Dark Pictures anthology, and as I mentioned in my review of the first one, I got both games for Christmas last year. In all honesty, I was more excited to play this over Man of Medan because witchcraft in a town setting seems way more interesting than horrors on a ship. In general, I have a preference for locations that feel more like lived in, if that makes sense. Like towns, houses, schools, stuff like that. Hospitals and labs appeal to me a lot less. So, the setup this time is that a bus crashes after being forced to take a detour through the town of Little Hope. This leaves our protagonists, 4 college students and their professor, stranded. There's Andrew, who's got amnesia from the crash, Taylor, who's got a bit of an attitude, her boyfriend Daniel, sassy Angela, and John, who's an overbearing know-it-all. The group doesn't really get along and can't agree on much of anything, but with their ride totaled and the driver missing, they're left with no choice but to head into town. So, like with Man of Medan, you control these 5 as they make their way through the town of Little Hope, learning more about what happened there long ago, and the connection that it has to the things that are happening now. Between these segments, the curator returns, giving us advice and judging our choices. Other than making the occasional decision and finding clues, gameplay consists of everything that was in Man of Medan, namely QTEs and minigames. The QTEs have changed slightly in that the timers for pressing buttons are nowhere near as fast as they were in Man of Medan. Whether you're relieved by this or disappointed that it makes things less tense will depend solely on your personal preference. I still think they should just have a difficulty setting for them so everyone gets what they want. The heartbeat minigame could still use a bit more warning, but I didn't have the problem I did in the last game where I'd immediately press the button when it appeared on screen. They put a line on said button when it appears, and there's like a beeping noise. It's not the best warning, but like I said, I personally didn't have any problems, though I did see some LPers fail them, not naming any names. Gerard. Anyway, the heartbeat sections themselves are also way shorter, while in Man of Medan they could be quite long. Little Hope does have the annoying addition of, after a group of beats where you need to press X, they change it to the triangle button. It's still not a hard minigame, but the button changes feel really unnecessary. Also, when you need to button mash was more obvious, or maybe I just feel that way because with the longer timers it's not really an issue. And I do kind of feel like overall button mashing wasn't for like moments when your character was in danger. There's also one kind of new QTE. Well, I guess they did have it a little bit in Man of Medan now that I think about it, but I don't think I ended up getting that one too much. But it's where you have to move your cursor within a circle and press a button. Not much to say there, but a lot of people I watched play had problems remembering the button that you had to press, and even I forgot it when playing the game recently. Also, throwing this in a bit randomly, but I still had issues with not realizing you could turn the pages of certain documents. Like, I don't think putting a prompt there would kill them. In terms of the leeway you get missing QTEs, this game is probably somewhere in the middle between Until Dawn and Man of Medan. The QTEs are not unforgiving, nor do you get a bunch of chances if you mess up. Honestly, it feels like it just depends on the moment. Like, there's a ridiculous chase scene where you can literally fail every QTE and like nothing bad will happen. On top of that, at certain points in the story, a specific number of characters are required to be alive, basically making it so that your characters can't die under any circumstances if you would not meet that requirement. There doesn't even seem to be any reasoning behind this requirement either, like from a story perspective, it's just there. Now, let's talk a bit about the choices, traits, and relationship mechanics. In regards to the previous games, I've stated my dislike of the latter two, saying I found them rather pointless. In this game, it's a bit harder to say. For reasons I can't really get into here, I do like that the characters have relationship meters, and it can be oddly satisfying filling said meters, but it doesn't really feel like it affects the story too much. As for traits, the game tries to make them relevant, but kind of fails miserably. I'm not sure how much I should say here, but it ties into the decision making and the fact that overall, only about 6 of your choices actually matter, and 4 of those relate to your traits. I'll explain more in the spoiler section. Another thing I really want to mention here, while we're talking about choices, is that some of them were handled poorly. I unintentionally saved a character due to misunderstanding what the game meant when I chose the reassuring option, And another time, though I reloaded to change this, I got a character killed because I chose to be instructive instead of more hostile, expecting to be able to decide whether or not I did a certain thing. I have to be vague here, but a few moments like these were really frustrating. The premonition mechanic is back yet again, with the pictures now being replaced by postcards. The game never really mentioned this, but watching Let's Plays and browsing the subreddit, I came to learn that these have either white or black borders. White is apparently meant to show dangerous situations or good choices, while black is meant to warn you when a character can die. Even knowing this now, looking back, most of them still feel unhelpful. Another return from Man of Medan is the chapter select, which you unlock after beating the game. Just in case you're watching this review before the one for the first game, I'll repeat my warning. This lets you go back and replay any chapter, but doing this will still overwrite your save, so be cautious. Another unlockable if you pre-ordered the game is the Curator's Cut, which lets you play through the game as different characters, allowing you to see things from a different perspective. If you didn't pre-order, you have to wait until it's released as free DLC. It actually came out a little while ago, so if you're watching this review and didn't pre-order, you don't have to wait. While this Curator's Cut does fill in a few story gaps overall, I feel like it's not as good as that of the first game. While playing Man of Medan's Curator's Cut, I was surprised many times by what characters did without me controlling them. In Little Hope, I didn't feel this way even once. And what's worse, because so few of your choices actually matter, there's not much the other characters even can do. They won't go off and get themselves killed on their own, and of those 6 choices that change the outcome, you're controlling the characters that make 4 of them, no matter which mode you play. I also experienced a weird glitch while playing the Curator's Cut where I got Taylor killed while I was experimenting, and then she was alive in a future cutscene. Another issue is that the bearings, which show the choices you make and some of their consequences, are also out of order, and I hope that wasn't intentional. So, kind of tying into the Curator's Cut, I feel like shared story mode is less interesting this time around. In Man of Medan, it could lead to some cool moments. In Little Hope, not so much. You're often controlling 2 characters that are together, and when apart, you'll often be forced to wrap up because the other person progressed the story too fast, and not much interesting is really happening. You're just like exploring different locations. Movie Night has the same issue as the previous game, where someone can end up playing very little due to not all the characters having equal screen time. Like if you play with 5 people, one of them is going to get a character that does not get to do much at all no matter how you play. I really want to get into the spoiler part of this review, but before that, what's my overall opinion of the game? That's admittedly kind of hard to answer here. I personally like it more than Man of Medan due to the setting and characters. At the same time, I hate how few of the choices matter, and how few of the characters get actual arcs, especially seeing how good the ones that exist can be, depending how you play. It would have been nice if they'd all gotten time in separate groups too, but some characters spend far too little time together, when we could have explored those relationships more. The game has the same linearity that all the choice-based games seem to have, and given that the setting is this huge town full of interesting places, that just feels like a real waste. And most of the places that we do visit are not particularly interesting, and I'm not sure why they were chosen over some more relevant locations. And the twist here has proven a lot more controversial than that of the previous game. I unfortunately got spoiled on it shortly after I started playing, so I was prepared. That being said, to quote the curator, I feel it all depends on what you choose to believe. Okay, I've got to start talking about spoilers now. Fair warning for those of you who haven't beaten the game yet. So, watching the prologue, I gotta say, man, linoleum in the 70s was flammable. I overall really like this intro, but seriously, Tanya, freaking jump. You are outside on a balcony. Or just stand there until the fire department comes. I chose to save Megan because Tanya should have been fine, and she goes and climbs back into the burning house. This is also how I got spoiled on the big twist. I was trying to find out what happened if you chose to help her, and the fact that Taylor was allegedly a hallucination based on Tanya was right at the top of Tanya's Wikia page. I hate that. I know it's partly my fault, but still, why is that at the top of the page? Also, I've never heard Tanya pronounced that way before. I've only ever heard it pronounced Tanya. Is that a cultural thing? Different place? Where was this recorded? Anyway, the characters are overall not a pleasant bunch, with most of them arguing left and right. Taylor is probably my least favorite character. No matter how you play her, she ends up acting really irritable and nasty. Heading into town is clearly the best option. There will be help there. Even if someone does come along, like when she wants to wait by the bus and that person is willing to help, they literally just take her into town anyway. And John and the others would probably get there first. But no matter how many times I chose to have her agree to head into town, she'll just always go against it. I also really wish she'd spent more time with non-Daniel characters and had a clearer arc. Like, she makes a comment that she, finally feels like she belongs with the group, but nothing comes of that. And then to beat her demon, you have to have her face it alone, despite the fact that, her being stubborn and going off on her own kind of seems like her big character flaw. I feel it would have made sense to have, admitting that she needs help be how she beats her demon. Same with Daniel. He's supposed to be arrogant, but never came across as anything other than pleasant. With the non-Andrew characters, it's easy to see their flaws, but then he seems fine. With Taylor, I think it would have been interesting if they had had part of her flaw be that she had a tendency to feign helplessness or rely on others in an effort to win them over. That would make her behavior as Tanya make sense, and have her needing to face her demon alone show how she finally, changes. Daniel, I feel they could have played up his arrogance during the game, maybe have him keep getting into trouble because of his insistence that he can do things alone. Taylor was the only casualty in my playthrough because I asked for help. It didn't make sense to face my demon alone. I mean, these are supernatural beings, and so far they only seem to care about their doubles, so why would I tell Daniel to save himself? Maybe if they'd had his demon coming for him when he's trying to, pull us free, that would have made more sense, but... Anyway, so Taylor, for me, died in the house at the end. Poor Angela does not get enough screen time in the game. I do kind of like her sass, and though she doesn't have enough screen time to have an actual arc, I do love that she beats her demon by standing with John as he battles his. Anne and James were always at each other's throats when they should have been supporting each other, so I think that's kind of a really poetic way to handle it. John is by far my favorite character. I love how he always looks like he's smirking when he talks. He also has the best character arc, potentially going from a scaredy cat who tries to be a leader to someone who directly fights his demon and is willing to put his life on the line to protect his students. My absolute favorite scene in the game is the battle in front of the house near the end. John grabbing a sledgehammer and just taking on his demon directly was pretty darn epic, and in part because I knew the spoiler, I kept thinking of him as James and saw moments like these and guarding the door and everything as him making up for his mistakes and protecting his family. So it's pretty great. I also replayed the game to get the odd couple achievement for him and Angela, and I enjoyed that. During the battle scene, if you mess up one of John's earlier QTEs, Angela can throw him the sledgehammer, and I just think that's a really cool moment. Perhaps because of this, my favorite chapter is Full Circle. You got the awesome battle, and then there's just something kind of neat about exploring the ruined Clark family home. The demons are closing in on us. I do think the final, flashback scene could have been handled better, though. I wish all of the characters had been there to either forgive or condemn Mary. Perhaps their traits could come into play here. Instead, it's always just one character, and it can feel really odd. I managed to play as John here in the Curator's Cut by... killing off all the inferior characters, and it was a bit strange to have him defend Mary when he was condemning her just 5 seconds earlier. It could have been a cool scene. For the same reason, it feels wrong to have the little girl with no name not featured more. The one who causes the bus to crash. If you get the happiest ending, she doesn't even appear smiling in the distance or something. Given all the stuff with Megan and Mary, I feel like she should have been involved in our little happy family moment. I also kind of wish that some version of Carver had appeared too, because he's very relevant to what happened to both versions of her and to the rest of the characters. The comic you can unlock after getting all the secrets also suggests that he has some regret regarding his role in things, but that's it. The twist that the other characters were just Anthony hallucinating didn't upset me as much as everyone else, probably because I had gotten spoiled. I do think the story feels more powerful if the others really are the spirits of the deceased family, and the more I look into the game's story, the more I think that's the case. Makes me think not connecting this game to the intro of Man of Medan was a real missed opportunity, especially since they already had Daniel's actor for it. And, you can find, the photo of what looks like Daniel in like the war, going off to war. And then there's the change to all the endings if you find all the secrets, which has to mean something. I'm actually planning to devote a full video to this topic, which I might release after this while waiting for House of Ashes to come out. We'll see how that all works, time-wise. Anyway, the choices in this game were overall pretty awful. Vince plays a tragically small role in this game, but regardless of whether or not you shoot at him, if you aren't super nice during a brief interaction with him at the church, then you get arrested. Like, if you shoot at him and then act like a jerk, the ending where you get arrested makes sense. If you don't shoot at him, what are the grounds for him calling the cops? They should have, like, come up with an alternate outcome for it if you're just mean, like maybe he kills Andrew or something. And as a side note, how does he even realize who Anthony is? Like, he's allegedly in his 60s now. None of these characters look as old as they're supposed to. I did shoot at Vince, by the way, but ended up winning him over, so I got a pretty happy ending. The idea of Anthony's family reassuring him and telling him the fire was just an accident is nice. Though it's kind of weird that all the characters' voices will play even if that character died. If you don't know already, the non-Andrew characters can all suddenly die at the very end of the game if you didn't unlock their positive traits. This isn't necessarily a bad idea if it had been handled better. The subreddit had already figured out that each of these characters had one moment where making the right choice would guarantee their survival. I've tested this a bit and can confirm that this choice is the only one that matters. You can play a character as nice as possible, but if you pick the wrong choice when that moment comes, they're doomed. The opposite is also true. If you play a character super mean and nasty, but you pick the right choice in that moment, they're saved. I think this is really lame, and like I said, in the creator's cut, you're still controlling those 4 characters during those moments, so you don't even get to experience the joy of them choosing their own fates. I only lost Taylor. Daniel would have died too, but when I picked reassuring, I thought that meant reassuring Andrew that he could pull us up. Few people ever get Angela killed when her moment comes, because why would anyone choose to just be mean for no reason during that part? Like, they could have made the other choice be to just run, rather than asking players if they wanted to be a jerk when it wasn't really called for. And I did technically kill Angela during that part where you can shoot her. I actually knew about this part too, but I never would have shot without being sure what exactly I was shooting at. There was no reason for John to demand Andrew put the gun away before we knew what was coming, and I really thought we get to choose whether or not to fire. I reloaded because that was bogus. I mean, when I say don't do anything until you have a clear shot, I mean wait until you can clearly see what you are shooting at. Also a bit random, but I really hate that they teased us with the school and then didn't have any path where we went inside. I love schools in horror games, and that would have been Megan's school, right? Plus, I think Reverend Carson taught there. It would have been a perfect chance to learn more about them. Instead, we go to a grocery store. Yay. Got a keychain. So, regarding the whole fire business with Mary and Megan and their connection to their respective reverends, I think that could have been handled better. Part of me likes that we don't get clear answers, because Anthony can never truly know the details of that night or what was really going on with Megan. But in regards to Mary and Reverend Carver, the theatrical cut clearly portrays Carver as the bad guy and Mary as the victim. It never felt like she was the villain, and I've yet to see a playthrough where anyone chooses to condemn her in the end. The creator's cut has a scene where she flat out lies about her doll getting Tabitha killed, but that's it. We needed more moments like that to leave us wondering who the bad guy truly was, and maybe some stuff to make it seem like the Reverend might not be evil, but maybe he was the one being manipulated and genuinely thought he was protecting the people of Little Hope. I've got a lot more to say about the ending, but plan to save that for the video I talked about. I'm not sure how long or interesting it will be. I've wanted to make some videos like that for a while, and have mentioned doing Resident Evil videos of that nature, so this might be a good way to start that. Anyway, for now, that's it for my Little Hope review. Less than a month before House of Ashes comes out, at least at the time that I'm writing this. It will probably come out right before the game, so I hope everyone's hyped. I've been avoiding all the trailers and demo stuff, besides the preview that we got at the end of this game. The idea of roaming around an underground temple doesn't really appeal to me, but we'll see what they do with it. I know some people are worried that the monsters will all turn out to be a mirage or PTSD. I am personally rooting for Aztec robots. In all seriousness though, I love the theory someone put forward that they're slowly building up the threat level, so maybe this game will be more directly supernatural? Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll leave a comment and maybe subscribe. Until next time!